rise above the static, dissecting issues diplomatic. With mics in hand, they brave the storm of clashing views and norms transform. The Pundits Podcast, bold and true, shining lights on red and blue. Through heated takes and reasoned thought, they seek the truth that can't be bought. From climate change to foreign ties, they pause the spinning and sift the lies. No stone unturned, no topic taboo, as left and right come into view.
Hey everybody, this is Razib Khan with The Conversation, and I am now here with two non-cons. I am here with the usual Josiah Neely, who is here every week, and otherwise he is at R Street or doing whatever Josiah does when he's not working and on this podcast. And I am here with a guest today, our friend Kevin Dolan, who is, we see him around town, so that's why, I'm going to say his, friend, not just an internet friend. And also Kevin is the organizer of Natal, which we're going to talk about, and also Exit, which, we could talk about, but not on the topic list. But Josiah and I are known to go off topic, right, Josiah?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So, okay, so Natal, I went last year, I was a speaker. I was profiled as one of the white nationalists at Natal by Austin Weekly. So, that was interesting. I think what happened, just candidly, is there were some you got some big names that had committed, like Louise Perry, and then they pulled out, and so which is ironic because it's Natal. But anyway, so I think they were just like, okay, we got to find people to write the hit piece on, and I was still there, so I think that's what happened. Because I think if Louise had stayed, I think she would have absorbed the damage, honestly. So thanks, Louise. But in any case, obviously, I don't believe Natal was properly characterized. And, I know that a lot of the people, let's say, quote, on our side are very cautious about talking to the media because, we know that they just want quotes to fill in their piece. But, Kevin, here you can kind of present your own case and in your own words. And so, talk about what Natal's about and why you did it.
Yeah. So, to be clear, 4 of the guests we lost were ladies who got pregnant and couldn't make it because they were having a baby. So in some ways, good news. So Natalism was born out of me and a couple of friends from Exit were watching Tucker's documentary, The End of Men, which was specifically about the endocrine, public health, obesity side of this fertility crisis. It was focused on the fact that we're just all very sick, and that's driving declines in sperm counts and all these health issues. And we thought there's probably a conversation that would include that would also include why are people having a hard time dating? Why are men and women just having a harder time getting along? Why do the social networks that used to get people married and raising families, why do those no longer exist? And what can we do about it? And so, I realized that this was something that a lot of people I admired were talking about and cared about. And I wanted to get as many of them as I could in a room to try to find some solutions. So the last one was focused on circumscribing the problem. What actually is this? What are the consequences going to be for us, for the Chinese, for the Japanese, the Koreans? And now this next conference in 2025 is going to be focused on what are the actual causes, what's actually driving it. There's a lot of. It was interesting because at NatalCon there was a lot of people who had a lot of disagreement, but it was very humble. It was very people were willing to listen to each other and kind of have it out in a constructive way. And I would contrast that with the way the discourse goes online, which is it's very much, women are gold diggers and sluts, or men just want to play video games, or, whatever. It's very accusatory. It's very adversarial. And we wanted to get away from that. And so that's what NatalCon was and is.
Yeah, I mean, Josiah. So I was a speaker. You were kind.
Did, yeah. I attended. It was a good conference, and it was an interesting mix, I would say, of like religious and tech people. With like, obviously, there was a significant overlap in the Venn or diagram or whatnot. But those are two, groups who I would say are kind of been like forward thinking on this particular issue of birth rates. Obviously, that's something that a variety of different religious communities have been concerned about for a while. And then the tech thing, I think, is probably mostly just Elon, waking people up to the issue. But yeah, so it was very civil. It was good. I think Diana Fleischman, who was also one of the speakers, one thing she said, it was like the least
The lowest rate of personality disorders.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Of any conference she's ever attended, which I believe.
Now her background is in psychology, so if she's going to psychology conferences, obviously they're all going to be mentally ill. But I think just in general,
I want to be clear. She's an evolutionary psychologist. She would want that entered into the record.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, she's not prescribing, Prozac to people or whatever. But yeah, so that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, it was like, I think, some of the, uglier aspects that kind of go along with some conferences were kind of more muted, I would say, at the Natal conference. But it was a good time. It was fun.
I heard several tech people ask, or register their surprise because they go to a lot of tech conferences and they go, it's weird that the Natalism conference is the one conference that doesn't have an orgy room.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, there weren't. This is, I think, one of the complaints.
Wait, what are you going to say here? I don't know where you're going.
Well, I don't know that much about these conferences, but I heard the joke from 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not going to complain that there was no orgy room. No. There were very few, I would say, like a lot of people were married and already had kids, which makes perfect sense. And there were a number of single people. I think the single skew was pretty male, so I did hear it's like you need more single ladies for Natalism too. Was the request I heard. I'm married.
I'll work on that. I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The exit surveys were 70-30, which I felt for a first time kind of weird conference was pretty good. We'll get better, but I feel like it was pretty good.
Like the overall skew was not. I mean, all conferences are disproportionately male, I think, unless it's like even like a Taylor Swift con or whatnot. I suspect would be like 75% male. It's just that the women were all already taken. They were married, they had babies or whatever. So yeah, but it was still a good time.
Yeah, I'll say, let me, Kevin, I think this is is this the first conference you organized? I mean, you were the lead, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have 2 co-founders.
Okay. So I'm going to give you guys just some feedback. I feel like, not gonna lie, I was a little stressed at how it was going to go down. Just from the communications,
Sure.
and I was surprised at how well you executed it. So, I think it did. You were learning. I think I could tell. I think everyone could tell. I'm not gonna lie. Like some people were like, "How's this gonna be?" Because it seemed like you guys were pretty new to it, which you were, I guess. And then, but it did. I do feel like, I mean, honestly, I think to a great extent, people wouldn't have been able to know. So that was good. So I'm hoping good things for the good. It's great that the first conference went off well. The downside is now you have higher expectations for number 2, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because
I would also say I know some people who stayed away the first time because they were like ideologically they weren't quite sure what it was going to be. Like, is it going to, I don't. The Austin Chronicle thing with the picture of Razib being a white supremacist or whatever is pretty laughable, but it does worry some people. But that obviously wasn't what it was, and I know some people who, afterwards, or maybe even you might call them liberal natalists or whatnot, who are like, oh, I might go to a future one because it doesn't seem like it. The shocker, the media was lying when it said it was just all white nationalists or whatever.
Well, and we worked hard. We worked hard to cast as broad a net as we could and get anybody who was interested to come and give their perspective. And it's certainly just by virtue of our social network skewed right. But like, if there are liberal natalists who have a take on that, like I'm actually, I think one of the problems that a lot of people are there to solve, a lot of the tech people are like, I'm actually temperamentally pretty liberal.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like this thing is not sustainable as a civilization. It's not working.
Right.
And so we got to figure something out. And so like, if there are liberal natalists who have a really great take about how you can kind of have secular liberal modernity and still make it, sustainable to raise a family in that context, like come tell us about it. That's great.
Yeah, so I actually just like by coincidence, this was not planned. Like Kevin, you came on part of it we just want to talk about like Pajit Hate Fest, which happened. I'm using that tongue in cheek. Don't like people get mad at me for using that term. But anyway, so I actually posted this week, like as of yesterday, as of recording. So this will be a couple of days ago when this posts, a 1 hour and 45-minute interview with Dan Hess of At More Births. And so we talked about a lot of different things. And it's like 45 minutes of his ungated for people here. So just go check that out. But basically, we talked about a lot of different things. And Dan doesn't try to be very ideological. He tries to be empirical. Like basically he is a single issue account. And, part of the, I don't know, should I divulge this? Okay, so I know that the New Yorker is working on a natalism piece. Okay, it's like, is this becoming mainstream? Okay, just so you guys know. Yeah, and so it's becoming mainstream. I mean, partly it's because Elon's mainstreamed it, but it was, I think, there, and like I got to give a shout out to my old friends Rehan Salam and Ross Douthit who were on this almost 20 years ago now, like let's say 2006, 2005, right? So there have been people who've been rumbling. There was stuff there's a documentary, I think, about the birth, dearth, and the graying of the world in the mid 2000s. That was before its time, okay? It was, but I do feel like natalism has reached its critical mass. I think it's reached its critical mass partly just because we were at replacement to 2006. And then now we are well below. We're like, 1.6, 1.7 total fertility rate. Whereas for most of Josiah, I mean, you're a little younger than us. How old are you, Kevin?
38. Just turned 38.
Okay, well, you're not that much. So most of our lifetimes, I feel like, we could be a little smug as Americans and be like, well, we're not like those Europeans. Like, we're at least at replacement. We don't need, like, if you just cut off all immigration, for example, America would have just maintained its population because we're at 2.1. Like, literally, that's what I remember, And then in 2008, the financial crisis, it drops, but it never really came back. So it's never really been about the financial crisis. And for those who are really into the details of like, oh, is it like teen birth drops or whatever, Latino teen births, whatever you want to talk about, you just go to the other one with Dan Hess. I don't want to go into all of those details. But the point is, the data has changed over the last 20 years. Instead of just a prophecy, we are in the end times, so to speak. The birth rate is everywhere. It's not just the United States. And so one of the philosophies that I would love, that I think that Natal actually, I think you do, I mean, you have your own strong viewpoints, but you bring together a lot of different viewpoints because it's not like we know that it's simply, I don't know, it's simply microplastics or something. We don't have like a silver bullet at what's causing the birth dearth. And it's happening all over the world. So I just read an article. I didn't read the whole thing, but Southern India, the states are actually advertising people should have more kids because their fertility has been below replacement for 20 years, over 20 years, like 25 years. So the populations are shrinking without immigration from North India. Well, that's stressing people out because anyway, there's various reasons. Okay, yeah, there's various reasons. We don't need to go there, but
Indians don't like Indians, you know.
well, if you've met North, no, never mind. I don't want to say this. Anyway, I mean, let's just say that like they would have some things to say about the newcomers. So, this is all over the world. It's not just the United States. We're always going to focus on the U.S. because we're mostly Americans, but hopefully there'll be more people international that are coming this time. And my understanding from Dan, by the way, who is, he tries to network with the natalist community, is you guys did try to invite people that were, like, let's say, center to the left. There were a couple of people that were in the center and a little bit more liberal, actually, that I met at the various, just like in the hallways, but it was hard to get those people to come to the conference because, well, they're going to be at the right wing conference, and what are people going to say and all this stuff.
We had multiple academics say that they couldn't professionally afford to
yeah.
Right.
Do you think the vibe shift has changed? Because I've seen some people that I see people on the list that, let's just say, we're not the type of people on the list last year.
Yeah, a lot more mainstream academics, which I'm really excited about because I think that it is time to collapse our vibes into more concrete hypotheses and policy prescriptions, and academics, can help us do that if they're honest and bright, and that's the kind of academics that we're bringing.
I feel like it's a year, but a year has shifted. I actually looked at some of my old writings just randomly, which I don't like to do, from like 2021 and 2022, and it was like the whole woke whatever, like it was right after 2020. There was just like the assumption that this was the new normal, and I think things have changed a lot. We'll see. Partly it's just a new administration, partly it's a vibe shift, which Josiah and I have talked about, like I'm sure you know about, Kevin. And so this is I'm interested and I'm excited. And for any of our listeners out there that have that know liberal pro-natalists, reach out to Kevin. I'll link to his Twitter. When we post this. But we want to hear all voices, and I mean, part of it is even within the right, there's like the tech and the traditionalist, but among the tradition, I'm saying there's so many different types of people. This is like a vast like coalition in a way of like different types. It's just basically, I would say it's in a way, it's fundamentally pro-human as opposed to anti-human, or maybe, I mean, here's what the question that I will just put to the audience is like, do you think that the ends of the ends of your life are to consume and enjoy, or do you think they are to, give forth to new life, right? And this is just a very broad general thing, and I think people that can answer, to the second, that it's not just consumption, it's not just going on trips and traveling, which is a huge reason that upper middle class Americans give for not having children. They want to travel the world. I don't want to seem contemptuous of it, but honestly, like I'm just like, I don't know how many times you need to go to Patagonia. Anyway, it's just like, so if you answer that yes, like to bring forth life and like the broadest like conception, yes, then you're part of the movement, but that's such a wide range of people. And some of the people, like, you guys are more trans, Kevin, you're Mormon, right? Or you're Latter-day Saint, sorry. I use the right word. It's like it'd be calling like, hey, Josiah, I'm going to do this. Josiah, you're a papist, right? Oh, sorry, Catholic. Anyway. But I mean, you guys obviously like differ in your metaphysics, in your theology or whatever. But I mean, when it comes to this question, the fundamental like core sentiment is the same, the practice is the same. So let's like figure out the details of policy that are pro-family, right? These are the sort of things that I think that we in our circle do talk about. And I do think like the media and the left sometimes they're just like, oh, like they're just like talking about like like what is it, like the 15 words or whatever, that sort of thing. And like, yeah, there are some people that that do that. That's fine. I mean, that's just, it's a big country, free speech. But really, most people are just like, okay, like how do we turn this around? And a lot of the people also, yeah. Go on, Kevin. I've been talking.
I had a journalist ask me to like take responsibility for all the racists who want to have white babies in particular. I mean, what I said to her was like, look, if you value anything at all, if you value art, if you value science, if you value going to Mars, if you value yet anything, any human thing, then we have to solve this problem. And it's like you can't take responsibility for everybody who cares about this issue, because everybody who cares about anything cares about this issue if they're aware of it.
Yeah, and like here's the issue. I mean, who is it for us to judge? The white identitarian with his Filipino wife producing more babies. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's just like these there's non-traditional relationships everywhere. So I do have to say, like, I hope that is an obnoxious tick that the media will get over, because that is like a non-starter. No, I'm not going to speak for someone else. I will speak for me. That is basically a way for them to turn the conversation whatever they want to. I mean, I think this is why people like us, to be candid, do not speak to the media and speak to the media directly through our podcasts, our Twitters, because we want to speak in our own words. Like, I am going to be responsible for what I believe and what I say. I can't know what your characterization of somebody else is. And so then you get into this weird, well, if they believe that, of course, I don't think Jews should be sent to the camps or something. Like, they'll tell you something, and then, like, okay, if you get into the game of commenting on other people, there's no winning there, right?
And one of the great takes that Balaji's had recently, or not that recently, I guess he's been saying it for a long time, is basically like, you just don't need them. You don't need the distribution channel. Like, that's been democratized.
Great.
Like, you don't need journalists to get your message out, like, at all. They exist entirely to essentially be to control thought in exactly the way you're describing. Like, that's their only job at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's about right. I mean, I do invite the listeners here who are in Austin, and I know we have some in Austin, to come just kind of see the I don't want to say pageantry, but like a little bit of the circus of all the different people. It's interesting. It's a different crowd. It's not. It is literally diverse, actually.
It's our
Like,
strength.
there's no equity, but there is diversity and inclusion. Because I don't know what the hell equity means. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, there's some people like you, Kevin. Like,
I mean, some of them are founders. They probably have equity in their companies. So
yeah, I technically have equity in my former company. So let's not talk about that. Anyway, okay, yeah. So NATO is it's. I mean, do you want to say the date or anything like that, just for the listeners? Would that be? Yeah.
Yeah, March 28th and 29th in Austin. It's going to start at the Bullock Texas History Museum, and then the full day conference will be at the AT&T Conference Center across the street.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys, anybody out there wants to meet me IRL and see if I'm as obnoxious in real life as I am on the internet, you can meet me. I will tell you that I'm probably more. So just brace yourself.
Offer code Razib. Offer code Razib.
Yeah. What was I?
I say it's 15% more. It's not like 10x more. So people, don't be that scared.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna switch to non-controversial topics right now. Immigration. And so I'm gonna update people because there's a lot of people who are not online, which is most people, because we are recording on the 27th. We are recording 2 days after Christmas. So this is the week that people actually just take off. Normal people.
Which I think had something to do with this, actually.
That could be. So I'm gonna characterize this real quick, and then you go, Josiah, what you saw, and then Kevin, you could talk about your perspective. I mean, I feel like you don't need to describe it. We'll have described it, and then you can talk about your own viewpoint where you stand. Okay. So basically, I didn't see the beginning. I'm going to be honest. What started happening? My replies started. Poop and Pajit started happening. So I was like, okay, what's going on? So it's like the whole internet. The whole internet was starting to swarm. Or not internet. X. X has changed. I do have to say, just a parenthetical. X has changed where I have to say in the past, aside from COVID, there was no one trend that could ever overwhelm my timeline. But over the last couple of days, I've seen nothing but immigration and H-1B stuff. So I didn't really know what was going on. I think I just like put out a few tweets, and so there was basically kind of a polarization. It was triggered by someone named Siriam. You don't need to know about him. But basically, that's like it was like a trigger for an underlying tension. So there is a tension within, let's say, the Trump administration is the way I'm going to say it, because Elon and Vivek are somehow associated with this, with Doge, obviously. But there are people who are associated with that faction in Silicon Valley who are center to the right. Some of them have been longtime Republicans or conservatives, like David Sachs, for example, and a lot of the people in the Peter Thiel circle. Then you have Elon, who was frankly like pretty apolitical, but nominally a Democrat, although privately he said confused and mixed things to different people. I really think Elon is not a Republican or a Democrat. He's a Martian. So I think, just that's the issue. He's not really fundamentally political, even though he made a big difference, I believe, in this election. And obviously he has like a strong pro-Trump viewpoint, at least up until now. And, that faction of the tech, they wanted to, I think some people were floating the idea of uncapping H-1Bs, just special worker visa, tends to be dominated by Indians, so that would result in a lot more Indians coming to this country. There's a huge backlog for the people that don't know. This is mostly a tech sector issue, so this is, fundamentally different than the undocumented immigration question at the southern border. And obviously, a lot of the MAGA people, and I don't actually want to say MAGA because I feel like MAGA is too broad. There are a lot of immigration restrictionists who were at the heart of MAGA. That was their raison d'etre while they were with Trump. The issue is like there's different people who are with Trump for different reasons, right? So, for example, like all of the the possible majority of Latino men in the United States that voted for Trump this fall, almost certainly it had to do with inflation, economics, and to a lesser extent, annoyance at woke culture war dicta, right? But there have been people who have been with Trump since the beginning because of immigration, like Ann Coulter, though she said some bad things about Trump when DeSantis was running. She was early on the Trump train, and it was about immigration. And just to reiterate, I mean, Trump, on like a lot of fiscal issues, for example, is not particularly right wing. Like on Social Security, for example, he was much more of a moderate dove compared to the other Republicans. Our deficit grew under Trump, which from a fiscal hawk perspective is not great. Obviously, he's grown more under Biden, but he definitely was not even keeping it under check. His attitudes towards the Federal Reserve's policies of interest rates was definitely seemed like a loose money policy. He wanted to, goose up employment under his administration. So on a lot of issues, Trump is not actually far right. On abortion, I don't think he's far right at all. Josiah and I have talked about this. Just on a lot of, even on like homosexuality, he has put no gas under the idea that you should do anything about repealing gay marriage in any way, right? So why is the quote far right supporting Trump? And it's because on the immigration issue, he's been relatively consistent, even back when he was a moderate Democrat in the 1990s, when it was okay for a moderate Democrat to be immigration restrictionist, to have want lower flows. He's always been on that side. On trade, he's always been a nationalist. So these are the two things, and they kind of dovetail together in a way. And a lot of the people who've been with Trump for a long time are very, very strong on that. Obviously, Stephen Miller within the administration is very strong on that. Bannon is pretty strong on that. Some of the, let's just say like the intellectuals who've been with Trump very early on, like Darren J. Beatty, who was canceled. He's very strong on that. Some of the people we know personally, who we don't need to name because they're not as public of figures, in and around Austin or DC, have been with Trump since 2015, or have been like on the Trump twain, as they might say. They have they've been on the immigration issue for a while, right? So like obviously this is going to trigger people. I don't really understand. I think he's not retarded. He must know what they thought. So people are saying, did these tech people not know? I mean, they must know. And I will tell you guys, I predicted that this was going to happen literally like the day after the election to people. Just like a lot of the centrists were just like, oh, they're going to do all these things. And I'm like, oh, just wait. There's going to be some conflicts. Okay. Like the whole goal was to win, which they did. But after you win, you fight within your coalition to figure out your positions, right? And Trump himself, though he is an immigration restrictionist compared to the Democrats, very much so, within the current Republican configuration, I would say he is a moderate, and he has reflex on high skill immigration because when he says things in psychology, there's a way where you prime people to figure out what they really mean when you hit them off script. When you hit Trump off script multiple times, he has said things about high skilled immigration that are much more aligned with the tech people than with Bannon. Like Bannon has had to correct him on his show, or correct him, or argue with him. And so Trump is actually kind of a centrist. I think he is at play. Okay. So this was going to happen. And the last thing I'm saying, because I've been talking for a while, last thing I'll say is there's a fundamental vision difference here, I think. But this is like there's overlap, there's a distribution. There's paleo conservative, people, let's say like the descendants of Pat Buchanan. They want the old republic. They want kind of America, before all of the craziness and the Cultural Revolution of the 60s. And they want America not to butt its nose into world affairs. And they want that back, right? Elon is not like that. He's a Martian. He wants to go to Mars. Okay. I've talked to one of Elon's intimates, not like a woman intimate, but just a male colleague. I got to specify that now. But, and literally like 2 weeks ago, a guy's probably going to go to the administration. He's like, I've known Elon he's known Elon since 2009. And I know, other people who know Elon who say the same thing. All he cares about, are we going to get to Mars? Are we going to be an interplanetary civilization? He has a vision of turning the United States into a launch pad, right? Everything else is commentary on that vision, right? Elon is fundamentally like a socially liberal tech lord oligarch. He is above, candidly, he's above nationality. He's barely a human in a way, And so, I mean, if you didn't know that, I also don't know what you're thinking. Elon, he's a weapon. He was a weapon that Donald Trump and the movement used. But weapons are dangerous, and you got to be careful and understand what the nature of the weapon is. And so this is all coming to a head right now. This is not over. This will not be over during the administration. This will happen over and over again because you have two extreme factions that have extreme views. I think most of MAGA is actually not that polarized on this at all. Most Americans are not that political. Most Americans this week are grilling, metaphorically, and they're going to come back probably after the new year, and the news is going to start bubbling up again and trying to figure out what's going on. And then I think we're going to have round 2, round 3, round 4.
Can I pop in on that?
Yeah.
I actually think even most of the people who were angry online this week are not that extreme on this issue. I think that the stakes feel very high, and there was a sense in which, from conversations I've had with people, including Indian tech people who were feeling very personally hurt and betrayed by the character of the discourse, and then white guys who are watching as they present what by all accounts is a pretty competitive resume, and they get just absolutely nowhere. And I think that there's a sense of, I think people actually did think that they were aligned, and I think they probably can be aligned again. But this fight is good to have. The issue with the fight, though, is that it's so multilateral. And so there is a very strong temptation on the white guy side to post the pictures of, some Indian guy who's literally Indian, doesn't even live here, who's, talking about how we're all inbred retards and we deserve everything that's coming to us. And then on the other hand, the Indians hearing from all the guys who are talking about street shitters and everything, like we're going to have to be able to have a conversation while there is a lot of low IQ shit talk on both sides, just as a background radiation. and just everybody's going to have to. Basically, we're just going to have to talk to each other, like instead of doing this like performance art thing.
Yeah, I mean, Josiah, like we've been talking, like you are a white person, but not a white nationalist, to my knowledge. So, like, tell me what you think.
I don't like nationalist.
I kind of think of you as brown adjacent. Not gonna lie, I don't know why, but I just kind of do.
Well, I was just thinking about this. Is that like for whatever reason I have had a large number of not even just not even Asian, not even South Asian, but specifically Bengali, Bengali friends and like close buds or whatever. Yeah, I let me say a couple things. One, I do think that it's not a total coincidence that this thing happened over Christmas. At least the way that the conversation played out, the fact that it was Christmas played a role, because during Christmas, most people are kind of checked out. There's no news. Most of the normal people are just like off with their families doing other stuff. Who's still there? It's people who don't celebrate Christmas for whatever reason, and people who are like socially isolated or whatnot. So they have a bigger voice at that period than they would have if the same conversation played out a month from now or so. Right now, the issues I think there are like underlying issues regarding immigration, the H-1B system, all that other stuff, which I do think are going to continue to bubble up. Immigration, historically, people have thought of it in terms of low skill immigration from Latin America. Like that's how, when people think about the immigration issue, that's what they think. I still think for most people that's where their head is at, but that's changing. If you just look at the sources and other stuff, the high skilled immigration from Asia is going to have a lot of completely different changes on American society and the economy and culture. And that's going to, I don't think that has like, fully ripened yet as an issue. I don't think even like most, like the people who are going to be affected by that, it's not on their radar, most of them, in terms of like, or they haven't identified it in terms of like competitiveness for elite school placement or in the job market or other stuff like that. And it's just like some people are aware that this is an issue. I think most people are not aware of this issue. It's going to become a big issue. Go ahead, Kevin.
I just, on that topic, I said something about Civil Rights Act, and Razib replied to me, and that was, I think, how this.
No, we're gonna talk about that after the paywall. We're not gonna.
I think we should. We can talk about when to pay.
You want to paywall? You want to go right now? You want to go?
I think we should go. Let's go.
Are we teasing the listener?
Yes.
Are we teasing him? Are we teasing him? All right, like now, paywall it. The person who's paywalling, by the way, is an Indian. But,
Oh, no.
okay.
So,
hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. To listen to the rest of it, please go to conversation.substack.com.
Two minds met on a summer's eve, each with truths they long believed. Words flowed like a winding stream as hours passed in deep debate. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. In listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and futures range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and future's range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. It's not about who's wrong or right, but understanding others' light. In civil discourse we can find ties that gently bind. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. As dawn broke soft on dewy grass, they smiled and shook hands at last. Two souls enriched by reason talk, united in respect. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. This folk song captures the essence of a long, thoughtful discussion between two public intellectuals. It emphasizes the power of patient listening, mutual respect, and the discovery of common ground. The gentle tone reflects the common understanding they reach after their debate. Would you like me to expand on any aspects of the lyrics or discuss